Welcome to KCC Diesel. This is DST 110, and this is our chapter on safety. So shop safety is very important, especially here at KCC. We expect every student to conduct themselves in a safe manner while in the shop. And so let's talk about a little bit of what that consists of. So I'll be your instructor today. My name is Jeff Rush. Let's look at some of our learning objectives. So we need to be wearing proper attire when we're working around trucks. At KCC we have a prescribed uniform, so you'll be wearing that. You need to choose a type of protective eyewear that works for you, and then we'll describe some of the hazards associated with high voltage, hybrid trucks, things like that. We'll be explaining the purpose of the third terminal on a North American 120 volt outlet. That third prong, oftentimes we find them missing. We'll be explaining personal safety precautions, including the use of the MSDS, the Material Safety Data Sheets. All right, proper attire, and this is on your syllabus. No loose or untucked clothes, no jewelry, you have to tie up your long hair. Steel-toed leather work boots with slip-resistant soles, no cowboy boots, no tennis shoes, no unlaced boots. Our shoes need to be on tight and secure. Leather gloves for mechanical protection, chemical resistance gloves to prevent chemical absorption through the skin. One of my favorite sayings is, everything in the automotive and diesel industry causes cancer in California, and we're pretty dang close to California. This is kind of no joking matter in the sense that we are exposed to chemicals every day that build up in our bloodstream, can cause damage long term. You really do want to protect yourself. So here is an example of proper footwear. Now this technician has his boots tied up, and he's chosen a brand of boot. The brand of boot is up to you. I typically wear Red Wings, something very comfortable. I'm used to being on my feet 12 hours a day, walking, jogging, jumping up and down, standing in one place. So you want something that's comfortable. I choose to have an orthotic in my boot. Here's the base model safety glasses. And you really want to, choose a pair of safety glasses that fits you well, that fits your face, that fits your ears, and that will not allow anything to come in around the face shield area here and drop into your eyes. And then obviously the wraparound design is so that things can't, come flying in from the side of your glasses. And that's why most regular glasses, most prescription glasses, things like that, don't meet these safety glass requirements because they do not have side protection. All right, eye protection. Safety glasses with side shields should be worn at all times. Now, you'll find out when we come into the lab classroom area, that is a multi-purpose area. So when we're sitting down at the class desks, obviously you don't need to be wearing your safety glasses, but if I stand up and I start doing a demonstration, you should be aware of the fact that I always say safety glasses aren't typically for the user. A lot of people think, hey, if I'm doing something dangerous, I need to have my safety glasses on. No, if anybody is doing something dangerous, if Mr. Rush stands up and does something dangerous, you need to have your safety glasses on. And what quantifies something as being dangerous? Well, is there any opportunity for a sharp object to fly across the room? Is there any opportunity for something to break, shatter, splinter? Any of those things could constitute a safety hazard. So really, in a diesel shop, we just wear our safety glasses all the time because you never know what's going to happen. Your face shield provides added protection. So if you're going up to use a grinder now, obviously when we're grinding, we know things are going to be ground off, we're going to have shavings or whatever else flying in the air. We want to make sure that that is taken care of, that there's no way that that's going to hit us in the face, hit us in the neck. The face shield's nice because it covers our bare skin around our face, our head, our neck, our forehead. I've seen all sorts of crazy injuries and different problems that happen at the grinder, so we always wear a face shield when we're at the grinder. You should always know the location of your eye wash station. You should always test the eye wash stations at least once a month. Here at KCC, that's the instructor's jobs. But if you see the eye wash stations here at KCC are located in the sinks, if you see the covers for the eye wash station off of the eye wash nozzles, make sure to put them back on, because if those are off, that means that there's dirt and soap and grit from your hand cleaner and everything else getting down in there. When you go to use it, or when one of your coworkers goes to use it and it's full of nastiness and it shoots them in the eye, it's going to add insult to injury. You could have a secondary injury that you weren't intending to have. So make sure those covers go back on. So here's a good example of that face shield. These again are the base model safety goggles and face shield. Here's that cover I was talking about. We want to make sure that cover's on. And here is the uncovered nozzle. So if we see this, we want to make sure that we cover that back up and keep it safe and keep it clean. All right, electrical safety. Some truck components, such as injectors and hybrid batteries and inverters, use voltages sufficient to cause electrical shock. So most 12-volt systems will not be flowing enough current to actually hurt you, or use enough voltage to actually hurt you. There's usually, you're not the path of least resistance. But when you start talking about hybrid batteries and inverters, things like that they're using transistors and step-up transformers, things like that, you can actually get burned. So you want to be very careful around the electrical items on the truck. Burns can be caused from a shop power cord and or hand tool being shorted out, not having the third prong. We talked about that a little bit, that ground prong. So we'll talk more about that going forward. You want to remove all your jewelry when working on vehicles. So no rings, no dog tags, no necklaces, piercings. I've seen injuries from piercings. Never remove the ground terminal on your extension cord. Okay, so here's what we're talking about now. Why would you do that? Well, you'll find some old sockets out there that they're not three-prong sockets. They're not a ground socket. They're just a two-prong. But if you're using an electrical tool these days, you really do want that to be a grounded tool. If you have an old tool, you may think about having that cord updated to a modern three-prong. So testing the GFI outlets. Well, first we need to define what GFI stands for. That's ground fault interrupter, or interruption. And these outlets, they actually have a circuit breaker built into the outlet itself. That allows some safety right there at the outlet. We don't have to have a short so bad that it trips a breaker at the circuit box. It just needs to be bad enough to trip the ground fault interrupter at the socket. So a little bit extra safety there, so we do want to test those periodically. All right, battery safety. So all sorts of manner of injuries can come from batteries. Obviously batteries are full of acid, so you don't want to get that acid on you. You want to be careful. So wear eye protection and protective clothing when working with batteries. And this may require an additional, face shield in addition to your safety glasses, and then an apron and or rubber gloves. We have different types of PPE when we're working with batteries. You want to keep baking soda near the battery storage area. Battery storage and servicing should be done in a well-ventilated area. When you are charging batteries, they are discharging hydrogen, which is flammable, so we want to make sure that we We don't do that around open flame, sparks. You don't put the battery station next to the grinder, things like that. Lithium hybrid batteries will explode if exposed to water, so we try not to submerge those. We try to use special cautionary, we try to use special techniques and special protocols when working with lithium hybrid batteries. At this time, none of the vehicles here at KCC have lithium hybrid batteries, so you shouldn't be worried about that. But when you go out into the industry, you will see hybrid trucks and things like that that will have them. All right, other personal safety things to consider. Never smoke in the shop or in and around vehicles. Again, you never know what's going to ignite. That's a rule, like, hey, you may realize, hey, I'm not covered in gas and I'm not, using flammable liquids, so I could smoke. Well, what if one of your coworkers or one of the fellow students here at the college is covered in gas, decides to walk up and have a conversation with you, and you light him on fire? That would be bad. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're not doing any of those things. We are not smoking in the shop or in the vehicles. Obviously, in vehicles, most customers are non-smokers at this point and would not want you smoking in their vehicle. You could have an accident, burn their seat cover, any of those things. So it's just smoking in the shop's unsafe. Smoking in vehicles is unprofessional. It's not your vehicle. It's the shop's vehicle. It's the customer's vehicle, and we don't take those kind of liberties. All right. Use care when tilting the hoods on the vehicles. Check for forward clearance and all the springs and cables and anchors are there. So these older trucks, they'll have fiberglass hoods that are broken, things like that. You'll try to tilt the hood, and it will literally fall off or be held on with one strap, and can come loose, causing an injury, things like that. So you want to be careful of that. When tilting cab over trucks, remove all of the loose items inside the cab. So we won't see very many cab overs here at KCC, and that's one of the reasons why we cover this. Is cab over trucks have a tendency to have lots of stuff in them, and when you tilt them forward, all of the items, all of the truck driver's items, all of the customer's items tend to fall forward onto the windshield, breaking the windshield or damaging it, or damaging those items that were sitting loose. I've seen everything from TVs, refrigerators. I've seen fire extinguishers. All of those things fall. The customer suitcase, things like that. So just be very careful that things are secured. Oftentimes put them down in the footwell, things like that, so that they don't fall forward. Also be very careful with older kind of poorly maintained cab over trucks. The hydraulics on the cab won't hold, so when you go to let them forward, the hydraulics don't hold and it falls forward. So a lot of people use a chain, a rope, a webbed strap, like a tow strap, to hold the cab so it can't go too far and overextend itself. I've seen broken hydraulic rams. I've seen all sorts of different things. So be very careful when lifting up a cab over truck that cab is not going to slam forward, hit the ground. I mean, I've seen all sorts of craziness. So you have to be very careful of that. Never work under a partially tilted cab over. Most cab overs have a point in time where the cab is now being held by gravity open. So don't partially open it and have it being held by hydraulics. That's the same as working under a jack without a jack stand, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation. Also, tag all your vehicles. Tag the vehicles being worked on. So when a customer gives you your keys or instructor gives you the keys and it doesn't have a tag on it, let's tag it. Make sure that we know who that key goes to, what vehicle it goes to. So customer name and the model and make and model of the vehicle is always a good idea. All right, remove keys when working in or under the vehicle. So this is always going to depend on shop protocol. But when we're out there doing a walk around on a semi truck, we're doing a safety inspection or anything like that, we remove the keys from the ignition. We oftentimes even lock out and tag out that truck to make sure that nobody can start that on us. It just depends. Now, one cautionary tale that I always tell is that a lot of these trucks and buses and things like that are in fleets, the keys are all keyed alike. So simply taking the keys out of the ignition and climbing under the bus is unsafe because someone can come up with a similar key, think they're working on your bus or want to move your bus and have a key to that bus and could actually start it and drive over you or drive away, or start the vehicle when it's unsafe to do so, causing damage to the engine, injury to you, whatever it may be. So lockout and tag out procedures are very important in that scenario, so be very careful of that. Know the location and operation of the shop fire extinguishers. Obviously we want to know where they are. In an emergency you get flustered, so you forget about those things, so you really want to have that memorized and be familiar with it, because otherwise you will forget in an emergency and get flustered. Be very careful of that. Also knowing how to use a fire extinguisher, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep, that pass method that we talked about, that's also very important. Alright, so here we have a picture of a hood being tilted up, and it's very important just to make sure that everything is attached properly while we're doing this. Alright, the class of fire extinguisher that we will be using, we like that multi-use ABC fire extinguisher. D fire extinguishers are special. So a D fire extinguisher is for combustible metals. These are not super common, so make sure that if you are working with aluminum, magnesium, potassium, sodium, titanium, or zirconium, that we are that we have the proper fire extinguisher around. Most of the time what we're using is aluminum and possibly magnesium. Old Volkswagen motors, old Corsair engines, things like that had magnesium in the block. So putting water on these fires actually makes it worse, so you want to be careful of that. But most of our fires are going to be ordinary combustibles, cloth, wood, paper, plastics, rubbish, upholstery, gas, grease, oil, paint, lighter fluid, electrical motors, appliances, wiring, fuse boxes, switchboards, things like that. Typically that's what we're going to be dealing with. When we get into this D range here, we have to be careful that we have the right fire extinguisher around. Alright, hazardous communication and the right to know. So hazardous communication administered by OSHA, basically your employer is responsible for keeping an MSDS book, keeping that up and running and up to date. So if you decide, hey, there's a new whiz-bang chemical out there, I'm going to order that from Napa, I'm going to order that from Novax, make sure that they send the MSDS sheet with that or request one, and if not, you'll need to go online to the manufacturer and get that MSDS sheet, because if you do not, you will have a problem with compliance issues. And if you do have an accident, you want to be able to find that readily so that we can administer first aid. If you get it in your mouth or you swallow it or whatever else. Do we induce vomiting? Do we not induce vomiting? Do we drink lots of water? Do we not drink lots of water? Do we call 911 right away? What's the protocol for that particular chemical? So we got to be careful of that. All right, again, a lot of places have a MSDS station like this. At the college, it's not quite as clear cut as this. And then chemical respirators. If you're using certain types of chemicals, you should be wearing a respirator. That respirator should be fit tested to you. If you're wearing a goatee or beard or a mustache, that respirator may not work for you, so you may need to actually do something a little differently. And then these canisters are replaceable, and they need to be replaced at regular intervals. Make sure that they're working properly. All right, safe work practices. It's the responsibility of each technician to work safely. Proper attire is very important for personal safety. Selection of proper types of gloves is important to protect your hands. There are many different types of gloves. Chemical resistant gloves should be worn to prevent harmful chemicals from being absorbed into the body through the skin. So your mechanics gloves are for scrapes, abrasions, things like that. But your mechanics gloves can actually become a hazard to you. So if you've grabbed too many chemicals, too many greasy, nasty components, or set them down in grease, or if they've become contaminated, they could actually be what's contaminating your bloodstream. So we need to protect ourselves from those types of dirty gloves. We need to wear the proper type of whether it's latex or nitrile or any of the other types of gloves that are out there. If we need to wear those, and then I also provide in the shop, I provide a type of invisible glove, a chemical agent that you put on your skin, and it basically they call it barrier cream. It allows you to work with those mechanics gloves that are a little bit greasy and not be exposed to those chemicals through your bloodstream or through your skin, through osmosis or whatever, because it closes up the pores in your hands and protects them. So there are lots of safety solutions out there, and you do need to advocate for yourself oftentimes to get those. I'm a big safety advocate when I go to work for a company, that I want to make sure that I'm being safe and that I'm being protected as I work. All right, the proper form of protective eyewear is important to protect your vision. Obviously, a one-eyed mechanic, not a great thing to have around. You don't want to be a one-eyed mechanic. Make sure that you are wearing your safety glasses, your coworkers are wearing their safety glasses. I always walk around and do a safety glasses check and make sure people are wearing them. It's as simple as just hey, wear your safety glasses. Just remind people, and hopefully that'll create that culture of safety. They'll remind you when you're not wearing yours. It's very easy for those glasses to get dirty, start obscuring your vision, and you put them up on your forehead, and then you go back to grinding or whatever, and you're grinding unprotected. So be very careful of that. Electric shock, we want to be careful of that at all times. We want to be very careful of dealing with any kind of cables or high voltage, hybrid vehicles. Now remember, this is DC voltage that we deal with on the trucks most of the time. DC causes your muscles to contract and hold on to things, versus AC causes your muscles to contract, open and close, and both of them are very dangerous, but they have different characteristics. So we want to be very careful of that. And then we talked a little bit about the grounding terminal. Make sure that third prong is on your cord when you plug it in. Electrical cords, things like that. You never know when someone's going to run over your cord with a forklift and cut through it. We want to make sure that it's being grounded. For them, for you, for everyone. We want to make sure that cord is properly grounded. So if you find a component or a piece of equipment that its third prong is broken off, that really should be tagged out for safety. You don't have to replace the whole item. Oftentimes you can just, depending on your shop protocol, you can just get a new replaceable receptacle or outlet and plug that back in. All right, jewelry should never be worn in the shop, so we've talked a little bit about that. I mean, I've seen all sorts of injuries from, I actually had my finger stuck because I was wearing my wedding ring. I got stuck between an alternator and a bracket, very embarrassing. Took several minutes to get loose from that. But gold's an excellent conductor, silver's an excellent conductor, so if you get your finger on a battery terminal, or just all sorts of different things. Set it on top of you're trying to hold on to the engine and you accidentally touch the alternator in the wrong way. Things like that. It can cause severe burns, take your finger off, all sorts of bad stuff. So we generally require everyone to take off their wedding rings, their dog tags, their necklaces, their body jewelry. All of those things being removed will help you stay safe. And then lead acid batteries are very hazardous. They can explode, resulting in sulfuric acid or sulfuric acid spraying over a wide area. And if you get this stuff on your skin, really the only way to stop the burning from the acid, from the chemical reaction, is a neutralizer like baking soda. But it can also, this acid can be very hot temperature-wise. So I mean, it can scald you and burn you, with temperature as well as the chemical reaction with your skin. So be very careful of that. And then hybrid trucks operate on voltages that may exceed 500 volts and make use of the lithium-ion battery. So we got to be very careful of that. Again, we don't have any of those here at KCC yet, but you never know what you're going to see or when you're going to see it. So you have to be very careful around these vehicles. They are color coded. They try to make sure that you understand what it is you're working on. So you'll start to see orange cables. So a lot like our regular battery cables, they look like large AUG cables. Your 3/0, your 2/0, your 1/0, big cables. But now they're coated in orange coating instead of the black or the red. All right, know where your extinguishers are. I think we kind of covered that. And when you come into the shop, we'll do a full safety walkthrough. I'll show you where all the extinguishers are. And then in the shop, it's also important not to put anything in front of the electrical boxes, the circuit boxes, or cover or impede any kind of access to the fire extinguishers. So don't put any equipment in front of them, things like that. Material data sheets, we'll go through some examples of those. All right, that's the end of our slideshow for today. Enjoy the rest of your day.